Good morning, Morai Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on our journey through Massechet Makkot, and we are at the very end of Perek Aleph, and of Zayin, Amud Aleph. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut refuah shelma Rachel, Simcha bat Nahid, Yael bat Loren Esther Shoshana, Iman Yitzchak ben Eliza, and has also been sponsored for refuah shelma of Sarah bat Mina, refuah shelma of Binyamin Eliezer HaKohen ben Malka, and for the zchut of proper shidduchim for Gilad ben Mordechai Ariel, and Bezat Hashem a healthy delivery for Talia bat Rivka, and for the Hatzlacha of Avraham Raphael. The learning of this week has been sponsored by Dayan family, by Kohen family, and by Shea families. Bezat Hashem for the Hatzlacha of their families. Amen. Amen. Now, we promised that we're going to go back a little bit to discuss some of the nice tidbits of Halacha that have been discussed in the course of the generations relating to the last piece of the Gemara that we did. Hence also waiting by the end of Perek Rishon to review it, Bezat Hashem, over the night of Shavuot. I'm putting a plug in there. We're going to have a fascinating Chabura, the all-nighter, going through the entire Perek Rishon of Masechet Makkot. Very highly recommended that people should actually participate. The Gemara says in Masechet Chagigah that we had together, Daf Tet, the Gemara says that the difference between a person that has reviewed a Masechta even 100 times and a person that does it 101st, it's unbelievably vast. The Gemara calls one of them Oved Elokim, the other one Asher Lo Avado, a commitment to knowing and to reviewing and to mastering information is an important one. So hence, once you're doing it, definitely you want to have mastership over the material. So that's going to be Shavuot night here. One of the Chaburas is going to be reviewing the entire Perek from the beginning of Ketzat Ha'idim until the very end of the Perek. Bezat Hashem, highly recommended. So now we had the fascinating comment of Rabbi Akiva, the last staff, speaking about Hanitpal le'oseh avera ke'oseh avera, and comparison of that and contrast with Hanitpal le'oseh mitzvah ke'oseh mitzvah. In other words, Rabbi Akiva said, well, and you have two edim that come and testify against somebody in the Bedin, they are sufficient power to make them pay, make them go through lashes, or even get killed. Now, what happens when you have three edim? So says Rabbi Akiva, even though that the third guy could say, well, you didn't need me, I'm not the one that made him the death penalty that he got, or the lashes that he absorbed, or the payment that he had to pay. I'm just an extra. I'm just an extra guy. The two were there. I just joined. Says Rabbi Akiva, the pasuk is coming to teach you that even though that he technically was not needed, but he is considered exactly like the first two. Hanitpal le'oseh avera ke'oseh avera. If you are joining a group of doing avera, you are, even though you didn't do it, you didn't cut it, you were not the one accomplishing it, but at the end of the day, you joined them, and the Torah considers you as if you did the thing. Says Rabbi Akiva, if you're telling me that, so then imagine only what could be by oseh mitzvah. We always say that midah tova merubah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever you find in negativity, 500 times more you find in positive. So says Rabbi Akiva in his trademark positivity, even though that he is dealing with the issue of edim zomemim, of negative, mamash negative content, he says, well, let's think about this. If you see that by negative they're like that. Can you imagine how good it is to be nitpal be'osei mitzvah? That even though that you're not doing it, but it is considered for you as though you are doing it. Now this, of course, is a very big comment when you start to think about it. So if I daven with a minyan and a big, or I do a mitzvah, a small thing, let's say, I go to a siyum shas. There are 100,000 people. They finish shas, and I'm nitpal le'osei mitzvah. Is that considered for me that? How about if I'm just doing one perek, right? If I'm doing one daf, and we're all 30 people together finishing a Masechet, is that considered that I am finishing a Masechet? How about if I'm buying an ot in the Torah, right? You have Achnasat Sefer Torah. I'm not writing a Torah. V'ata kitvu lachem et hashira azot is writing an entire Torah. But I'm just getting together with people, writing one letter. Is that considered that I'm doing the mitzvah Sefer Torah, Ktivat Sefer Torah? How far do you take this? Is it to be taken literally? Imagine it's the 9 days, and I want to have meat. We want to have meat. So we get together for 1 hour, Masechet Makkot, 1 hour, 23 people, easy, right? We made a siyum. Now we want to have shalom kebab. Can we do that in the 9 days? Or do we say, well, he didn't make a siyum, come on. Yeah, every one of you did a daf. Or maybe we say, no, hanitpal le'oseh mitzvah. Ke'oseh mitzvah, every person that joined the oseh mitzvah is considered as if he finished the Masechet himself. So each one of them finished the Masechet. Each one of them wrote their Sefer Torah. Right? You hear a question. So let's see a little bit of this back and forth. And this starts really from Divrei Yoelin in Truma, Daf Resh Hey. He says from this Gemara from Rabbi Akiva, Nilmat she'im rabim osim mitzvah b'shutafut. And that if a number of people do mitzvah and they do it conjoined together, says the Divrei Yoel, Kol hanitbal b'mitzvah zu harehu kechol ha'oskim ba. Everyone that's joining in, it will be as though he completed the entire thing on his own. Everyone is considered as though they did the whole thing. Based on this, he answers a lot of questions. He says, by Hakamat Mishkan, when people came together and put up the Mishkan, everyone couldn't build the whole Mishkan. Everyone wanted to, but they couldn't afford it and they couldn't physically do it. So therefore, it's considered as though they built the entire Mishkan by themselves. You want to build a shul, you want to build a bet midrash. A person may want to do it, but can't financially afford it, he can't physically do it, as long as he is nitva le'oseh mitzvah. He is considered ke'oseh mitzvah. And says the Divrei Yoel, "V'lachen schar kulam beyado, k'van shaya im bonei hamishkan." It would be considered, and this actually makes a lot of sense because it says that Moshe Rabbeinu built it. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't build it; he put it up together. But it's considered for him as though he built it, and according to the Divrei Yoel, that's just a example that the Torah is giving you to learn for every single person that was involved with Asiyat Mishkan, Ki'ilu bana et Mishkan, as though he did it himself. So it's not just that when you are doing a mitzvah together is a bigger mitzvah. Much more than that. When a person does a mitzvah with a group of people together, every one of them gets a schar as though they did the entire mitzvah from A to Z. So says, Sefer Nachalat Yisrael says, Yesh shnei anashim dechibru achad sefer echad. They together, two people wrote a sefer together, right? A chavruta shaf. They sat together, they're learning a sugya, and they wrote a sefer, right? co-authored a book. It says each one of them is considered as though he wrote the whole book, even though that it's a shutafut of both of them, because Chazal say when you have a chidush Torah, when we speak and we say, oh, Racham Bad this, Rav Yashiv said this, Rav Moshe Feinstein said this. The Gemara says, Tzivotav dovavot bekever. It's as if they are saying the chidush again. Their lips, so to speak, moves in the grave, figuratively. And that, says Nachalal Yisrael, will apply to even a co-author of a sefer. It's very much literal, this Gemara. Hanitzva le'oseh mitzvah ke'oseh mitzvah. Now, he explains that many places in Klal Yisrael, they have Chaburot HaShas. This that we spoke as a question, he actually brings it as a halacha. He says people have Chaburot HaShas. In other words, people get together, like we did this by Simchat Torah, right? We had 4 times rounds of Shas that was committed. We got a Bezat Hashem have a Siyum HaShas. How does that work, says Nachalal Yisrael? You have a person learning Eruvin, another person is doing Yevamot, and then you stand up there and say, Hadran alach Shas bavli vadra. How does that work? I didn't finish Shas, I just did Yevamot. I just did Bechorot. How does that work for me? Says Nachalal Yisrael, the reason for the minhag, and this is, he says, a minhag Yisrael, the people get together, they finish Shas. Or he says later on over here, for this question of finishing one Masechta even. We had like a learn-a-thon for different Masechtas that we finished as a Chabura and Amud Yomi. And at the end you stand up and you make a full siyum with the Kaddish and everything, says Nachalal Yisrael. That is based on this concept. Hanitpa le'oseh mitzvah ke'oseh mitzvah. When a person is joining a group that does the mitzvah, it's considered for him literally as though he did the entire mitzvah. It's a tremendous thing. So let's read the words of one of the contemporary Shelot Utshuvot Kinyan Torah Ba'alacha. This is in Chelek Hey of his Tshuvot in Siman Nun Bet, and he's basically discussing in time that he can't have meat in the 9 days, and you want to have a Siyum Masechta in a group like this. Everyone takes a daf, they learn it together, and immediately afterwards they will have a siyum with music and with meat and all of that. Al yedeh sheyachleku Masechet echad le-20 ish, you take 20 people, you divide the Masechta by them, v'chol echad mehem yilmad daf echad, ubekach yasu siyum al Masechet Makkot, he says, right? This is the example that he gives, is our Masechta, Masechet Makkot. Says you could finish Masechet Makkot, is 23 pages. It's not really long. You get 20 people, you divide it up quickly. In 1 hour you could finish the Masechta. Vehevi mashkatav b'shut bet Ephraim. He brings from Shelot Utshuvot bet Ephraim in Yoredea, Siman Samech Gimal, sheyotzim yedei mitzvat aseh shel ktivat sefer Torah yedei ktiva b'shutfut. He brings the example from the Bet Ephraim, Shelot Utshuvot bet Ephraim, that you could get together and write the Sefer Torah. This is actually very important, right? Now, the person that writes the last daf of Sefer Torah, the last word, rather, the last letter of the Sefer Torah, of course, he has a greater mitzvah because he really finished them. But the truth is, according to Bet Ephraim, every single person that participates in completing a Sefer Torah, kol hanitfal le'oseh mitzvah, in parentheses, if you want to be really medakdik, you have many sofrim that they have hollow letters at the end. It's not the broken letters, but it's hollow. And the people who come up there to participate in writing the Sefer Torah, they just fill it in. Others have like broken letters, but that's a risk because when you want to write the missing parts, sometimes you can mess up. It's easier to fill in something that's hollow. So if you have hollow letters, is that kasher or pasul? Well, if you have a hollow bet, for instance, right? You have a bet right over there because Mikar Adin, really, a bet the Shulchan Aruch says, En shiur le'ovi ha'otiyot. There's no amount of how thick the leather has to be. It could be very thin. So you have the outline of a bet, you have a bet. So if you have one of those Sefer Torahs and you want to really be makbid to do the proper thing, the only leather that doesn't become kasher by having a hollow leather outline would be Aleph, because the Yud on the top is not touching the bottom kav, and the Yud on the bottom is not touching the top kav. So you have a problem however you slice that. So if you have one of those Sefer Torahs and you happen to be there, don't buy the Lamed, buy the Aleph of Le'enei Kol Yisrael. That's one to the last leather, but that's just a technical tip for those who are going to be invited to Achnasas Sefer Torah. But according to Bet Ephraim, it doesn't matter. Whatever you get is going to be Hanitpal le'oseh mitzvah, ke'oseh mitzvah. You are doing a mitzvah together with a bunch of other people that is considered for every single one of them, as though they did the entire mitzvah together.
If you want to maximize your own personal schar, you should never do anything complete on your own. You should always divide up and never learn anything complete.
Not necessarily. Every person still has the mitzvah of Yedi'at Torah. You have to know the entire Torah. Of course, you have to finish it, right? But in terms of the schar that a person gets, it's a tremendous thing when you do mitzvah. Of course, it is true what you're saying. If a person is learning with a lot of people, part of the Beit Midrash, part of a group is always bigger, right? Eno domeh yachid ha'oseh ta mitzvah l'rabim oseh ta mitzvah. Chazal say this. That's not at all comparable when you have an individual doing a mitzvah versus having a group do a mitzvah. But be that as it may, this becomes a whole question for sandikaut as well. We touched on this before, whether or not you give a sandak to the same person twice, because the act of the mitzvah of Brit Milah is very much compared to Mizbeach and Ketoret. And therefore, just like the Gemara in Yuma says that they would not give Ketoret to be brought to the same Kohen twice in his lifetime, every time that a Kohen brought the Ketoret, his name would be X'd out of the tally for next lottery that they had in the Beit HaMikdash. It would never be entered the lottery again. The once in a lifetime, literally, was the Ketoret, because Ketoret is ma'ashir, and we want to give an opportunity to everyone. Hence, you have this minhag that many people don't become a sandak for the children of the same family more than once. That's a minhag. That's it. So the question now is, well, if you say hanitpal le'oseh mitzvah ke'oseh mitzvah, then of course the mohel is part of that. How about the guy that makes the sakin, provides the material? So those are all things that become a question based on this Gemara that we just had, and seeing how much the poskim take this seriously. That the person that is actually participating with oseh mitzvah becomes like literally part of doing the entire thing together. Now, if we have, I'm not sure if the time is going to allow for this, but because we are out of time, but maybe tomorrow we will speak about the following fascinating topic. We spoke at the last Gemara that the Beit Din cannot hear testimony of the witnesses in a different language, right? Hashtag Mordechai and Biktan V'Teresh. The Biktan V'Teresh, they were coming from a very obscure place that they were sure that nobody knows their language, and they spoke freely, not realizing that Mordechai was understanding everything they were saying, because he was part of the Sanhedrin, understanding every language of the 70. And you'll see that Rambam does not require necessarily every single language that's out there, and Maran's question on it. And what do you do nowadays? Nowadays, you have, Baruch Hashem, again, a kibbutz galuyot. Many people come that they are, the Persians come to Eretz Yisrael and they don't yet speak a fluent Hebrew. They can't really, or they come, we've had this, people come to the Beit Din over here, and they can't fluently speak a proper English. in a way that the Dayanim actually would understand what you're trying to say. Can you have a meturgeman? Can you have somebody that can go to DMV and you have people coming with their sons, with their daughters, with a meturgeman? Can you have that on Bet Din? According to our Gemara, you can't have that because the Dayanim have to hear it firsthand. So is that only for Edim? Is that for Baalei Din? How do you deal with a multicultural generation nowadays that you could have in the same country a person that only speaks Spanish, only speaks Hebrew, only speaks Farsi, only speaks French? You have all these people, Baruch Hashem, coming together, especially in Eretz Yisrael. You have all these languages. How is the Bet Din dealing with different cultures when it comes to modern day Dinei Torah? Is a question that B'ezrat Hashem we will deal with in the days to come.